I just want to thank you all for having Tony and I here. We really appreciate you having us here, and the hospitality that you've showed us has really been really nice. And we've been here for a couple days, and we look forward to being here through your Saturday Night Awards. And so, just want to thank you, because that's really the highlight of what I get to do, is to go out and visit with the chapter members. That's really the essence. I'm going to get up here and I'm going to talk for a few minutes to you today, but really the essence of our visit is really coming out and talking with you and socializing with you, sitting around the table. Had a great breakfast this morning with a group of young people from Cal Fullerton, I believe, one of the student chapters, and really had an interesting conversation with them for about a half an hour as they were questioning me and talking to me and how do I get to this position, and so I was giving them a long lineage of history of how we work up into this position and involvement in AGC, and just how important that is to be involved in your industry. And you guys here in California do a great job of that with your student chapters. There's no other chapter that I know of that brings their student chapters in like you guys do. I believe you've got 5, 6, 7, or 8 different student chapters here. That's really something. I think that's quite a testament to you with foresight and looking at where the future is. Future not only for this association but for your business, and that's why you do it. And so you need to be applauded for what you do there. That's something that's a little bit unique, and is really a great deal that's done here. And I think the students really appreciate that also. So I'll get right into some remarks, and my theme for this year was AGC, ready, willing, and able to meet the industry's needs. Pretty simple, and I wanted to keep it simple. I'm not really a complicated guy. When you live in South Dakota, you don't get very complicated. When you live in California, I could see where you could get kind of complicated. I was at your PAC meeting this morning. Holy buckets. Christ, what you guys spent in an election, hell, we could live that in South Dakota for 10 years. Yes, it's but it's very interesting to see the different chapters and be out there. And I really truly believe that AGC is ready, willing, and able to meet the industry's needs, whatever your needs are. AGC is there, and I know you believe that at a local level because you're involved there. Well, also at a national level, that rings very true. And I want you all to know something. Last May, I attended the FedCon conference in Washington, D.C., and the officers had all the officers come to it, and we met. And we all got there on Sunday, and Monday morning went over to the AGC headquarters, and we were there, and Steve and Dave conducted their staff meeting, their Monday morning staff meeting, and we attended. And we sat in the back and watched and listened. And I want you all to understand something, that you have some really good quality people sitting for you in Washington, D.C. that get up each and every morning. And our staff has shrunk a little bit because we're like, what are we at, 64, 63?
66 positions.
Oh, 66. So we grew one from the last, I think. So anyway, you've got 66 people that really wake up in the morning thinking about how they're going to defend you in that crazy city called Washington, D.C. And as they went around the room and talked about the issues that they were dealing with and the different things that were going on and the relationships that they had within, whether it be congressional staff or agency people that were involved in some of the issues, it was just amazing to listen to them and the insight that they had. And the one thing that I was able to realize very quickly after listening to them each as they went around the room and as they had built those relationships with those agency partners or their congressional staffs, is that they did it with a lot of things that we call skill, responsibility, and integrity. And that's something, you know, the words that we're supposed to live by. Those are the things that we go out and we build our projects with skill, responsibility, and integrity. And so I think it's only deserving that all of you are represented with skill, responsibility, and integrity, and I want to let you know that you are. In Washington, D.C., when you were there, and if you get to go up and if you are visiting some kind of a regulatory agency or that you are going to see a congressional staff, that AGC staff is already branded AGC with those people, to know that when you walk in the door and say, hi, I'm Mark Knight, I'm a contractor from South Dakota, and I'm with AGC. I think that lends a lot of credibility right there when you say those words, AGC, with that agency partner, that congressional staff. I think it carries a lot of weight because they understand and they know where you're coming from. So I'm just going to run through a couple what we do, how the officers and how our management team works and some of the issues, and I'll quickly run through those. I was going to go a little bit more in depth, but I want to get Steve up here. He's going to talk about the advocacy part of it, and he's going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, and he's going to make you all cry. And so the beauty of it, when Steve comes along, I don't have to stand up here and make you cry. I make him, he has to go do it and tell you all the terrible things they're doing to you. But the crown jewel of our association and of our plan and that we have 6 points, and number one is advocacy. That's what we're there for. We're there to advocate for the contractor, for our member, and that is you. And so that's what Steve and his team does back there in Washington, D.C. Jeff Schoaf and those guys do a wonderful job. You have a group of people that sit over there in the townhouse. If you've ever been to D.C., I encourage you to go over to the townhouse and see it. And that's where it's over there by the Cannon Building, about a block away from the House of Representatives, the Cannon Building. And it's a great place just to go visit and just see. And we host a lot of different events there, whether it be a fundraiser or even meetings for congressional staff and people. So it's a great place. But in the advocacy, that's our key. The one thing that I want to just throw a little plug in there, we have what they call the Construction Advocacy Fund. And that is outside of our regular budget of AGC of America. And we take 5% of your chapter dues that you submit to AGC of America, and that goes into that advocacy fund. But we're also out there trying to fundraise and trying to grow that fund, because that's what we do. That's what we use to fight these, whether it's be a lawsuit or whatever that we have to get after, and we need a fund there to go to get these monies to help defend ourselves. Now, I'd like to call it, I'd like to build it up, but I don't know if it'd ever get there, but I would like to have it be the fund, and I'd like to call it, Don't Screw With Us Fund. That you can get that large enough fund to that agencies and people know when they start implementing some of these rules that we have the talent and the resources that are available to make them think twice. Maybe we just better back off a little bit. These guys, got their poop in the group, and they've got some power, and they can fight back. So let's just be a little careful maybe how we proceed here. And so we're working very hard, and Steve is out there contacting non-members, larger contractors who are non-members of AGC. We're targeting those up in the top 100 contractors. I think 70% of those are members. The other 30% are not, but we're going there and asking them for large checks because we're representing their interests just as well as yours. And we've had a little bit of success there, and Steve keeps pounding the pavement, knocking on the doors and talking to them, and they're getting it. So we're very fortunate in that way to have Steve out there doing it and in proceeding with those contractors, and hopefully it'll keep growing and growing and growing. I'm just going to touch a little bit on membership, what we're doing with membership. Obviously very important to recruit and retain, and that's a link with you guys. That's a link with the chapter. That's a very important piece. And a couple years ago, under the leadership of Art Daniel, our vice president, he did some work with the membership committee, and we developed a survey to see what are the important needs of our chapters. What are they needing from us to be able to recruit and to maintain the current membership? We found 8 different points. We had a plethora of services. We had over 50 services I think we provided to the chapters, but a lot of them were kind of meaningless, and so we kind of got rid of a lot. We're focusing on this 8 that we had picked up from our chapter selves. This is what we need to help us become better and to attract and to retain that membership. So we're just there. We're trying to create that value proposition out there, making sure that there's a value proposition for our membership. Otherwise, why belong? So we want to make sure that we're creating that value. Workforce development. That's another one of the key points that we work on, the third point. And workforce development is involved in trying to find those situations where chapters are having success. I equate workforce development just like politics. It's all local. It really is. It's basically local. So we're trying to find those state chapter programs where they're doing successful things and what they're doing and how they're implementing that we can pass it on to the chapter. We want to be the clearinghouse for those successful programs that are out there. Now, like in South Dakota, what we'd done a couple years ago, we got our governor to sit down and we, he wanted economic development. Well, without a skilled workforce in a small state like South Dakota, how do you attract how do you attract industry in your state? We have a lot of great tax advantages. We have no corporate income tax. We have no personal income tax. We have a lot of advantages that way for business to come in, and we're very attractive in a state that freezes its butt off in the wintertime. That's the only downside, but other than that, we're a pretty damn friendly state. And so we're trying to attract that business, but if we don't have a skilled workforce, it's hard to get them in there. So we were able to convince him that to do some legislation that would reformulate the money, going from our public universities and taking some of it into our technical education schools. And we were very successful in it. As soon as we were able to do that, we got a couple schools to apply, make sure they got that money, and then we went in there and said, we need a construction program, and this is what we need, and we had members get deeply involved into it and been very successful at it. We also got them to put out some money for grants that we could apply for and get grants for construction education. And we were able to, as an association, get some of that money. And what we did was we went out and bought two trailers that you can pull behind a pickup, to tandem axle trailers, enclosed trailers. We put simulators in one, and we put carpentry stuff in another. And we're able, as a member wants, they can go down, they can hook onto that. You can shoot off. If you know there's an event with a bunch of high school kids or something that's going on, like state basketball tournaments or football or soccer, whatever it is, we can be there. Boom. A member can say, hey, I need to get that van. There's having an event over here. I want to get a hold. They can hook onto that van. They can go. And we've got staff that are available to help them assist in those events. So we're very quick and very mobile. We wanted to have something to react, and we were able to do that by getting a grant out of that funding that would help us to attract young people, attract kids into our trades. So. That was something that we've done, and that we hope that others could emulate. Companies are really changing and recruiting new people in for workforce development. We're starting to learn that we can't sit back and just go to a job fair and say, here I am. We have to be very proactive. And as an industry, we're starting to see that, and we're starting to see development in that way of how companies are going out and attracting young people and the different methods that we're doing. Now, that's just something that's kind of in its infancy, and we're kind of watching that and paying attention to the some successes that may happen out there. And we're going to watch that very closely, and hopefully we can report to you some of the things that they're doing that you could also use here in California to help attract workforce. Having workforce is great, but you got to be safe. We got to keep our workers safe. That's becoming a real key component, and so through education, we're trying to do that. But what we're really trying to do is we've done some surveys, and we found out on the highway side of things that we have 40%. Last year we had 40% work zone intrusions. 40%. Now that's a lot of getting traffic into our work zones. That's dangerous. And I happen to have a good friend, Bob Lanham, with Williams Brothers Construction down in Houston, Texas, who was showing me on his phone they had a work zone intrusion and somebody got killed, and they were next to a parking lot area which happened to have a security camera, and so they had video footage of it, and he was showing it to me on his phone as the car was coming along, skidded out of control, skidded through the cones, down into the ditch, and killed a workforce member. And so those are the things that we're trying to do, is trying to get through trying to get it through the highway bill that we can get concrete barriers up to protect our workers. And that's really a hard thing to sell, and it shouldn't be. And we've been trying at it for years. We've been trying at it for the last 3 highway bills, and we can't get it done. We just get so much resistance from the AASHTO people because they got to pay for it, and they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for the safety of our workers. And sometimes it's the safety of their workers also. They're out there alongside with us. So we're working very hard with that. And also we've done, we were waiting for a study, and I'd asked Steve about it again. We're getting kind of impatient. We had commissioned Virginia Tech to do a safety study. And what we did was to go over the last 3 years of construction deaths and go back and analyze what was the cause of that death. Is there common threads? What time of day is it happening? I think Steve had mentioned one time that, something that came out of it was like on Wednesday, an hour after lunch break was a common time to have it. Why on a Wednesday, an hour after lunch break? Are they doing something during lunch? Are they, we don't know. But that's something that kind of came out of that study. We're waiting for the total results. They're just about ready to come out. I've been telling everybody they're just about ready. I've been doing that for 2 months, so we're really hoping that they're out here very soon, and that we can report to you what they found. Another thing that we look at, a fourth component that our management committee works with, is non-dues revenue. And 53% of our budget at National AGC is created through non-dues revenue. And you can create non-dues revenue, and you know you can just do that. You can charge for things, but you can't do that unless you're creating value. So we got to create value. That's one thing that we're really working hard on, is making sure that in these non-dues revenues areas that we are creating value for the member, and that it's something that they can take home and is very useful for them and is a good reason to be a member. So I'm going to get into the last and final one is relevancy. Okay, relevancy means a lot. You know, what do you mean by relevancy? Well, we need to be relevant if we're going to be in a construction. Are we relevant to our members? Are we relevant to the industry? We want to make sure that we are. And the one thing, the key thing that we're really focusing on, that I am really focusing on, that I'm really more interested in anything right now, is diversity. We need diversity. We need diversity in this industry. And we're out there, and we have a diversity and inclusion forum that we've created. They had a meeting here about a month ago. Second meeting's coming up shortly, Steve, I'm guessing. And a lot of great things. We had, I think there was 28 individuals that participated in this from across the country. A lot of good things come out there. We want to be able to attract the diverse work groups, the diverse companies, get them into AGC, help them in growth strategies and professional development within their companies. They need to learn that. They need our help. We want them to be a part of us. And not only that, we want to attract women into the workforce also. Women are going to be a part of our workforce, and it's going to happen. It can happen organically, or we can make it happen. And if we sit here and wait for it to organically happen, it will happen. It's going to be somewhere down the road, and we're going to be way behind the 8 ball. So we need to get out in front of this issue. We're actually out there. We're trying to visit with young ladies, get them involved. On my board of directors, we happen to have 2 ladies, one that I had recruited to be a wild card, and another one who happens to be the vice chair of our utility infrastructure division. So it's really nice to have a couple ladies that are getting involved, and we're really pushing and looking hard for that to get more of the women involved in leadership roles in AGC. Also, youth, young people, and you guys know that. I'm talking to the choir here when I say that. But on our board of directors, I get 5 wild cards that I get to choose. We have a 25-member board, and 5 of those are wild cards that I get to choose. We typically use that to either balance our directorship, our board of directors through regional areas where we may be a little bit light in regional areas, or through whether it's a highway or building, we need to balance some things out. I use it to bring young people in. And of the 5 members, 4 of them are CLC members. And so I wanted those youth to be at the table, because we have a bunch of old white-haired guys that sit around the table, and we kind of do, well, we always did it this way. And so when I talked to them and I called them up and said, you know, the only way I'll let you be on the board is you got to promise me that you will raise your hand, and when we get that talk going, no, this is the way we've always done it, that you raise your hand and say, bullshit. And I mean say it, because that'll get our attention, and that's what we need to do. Sometimes, you know, we get really comfortable in what we do, and us baby boomers, we don't like to let go, and we really don't. But these 4 individuals have done a great job. I've tasked them with to come up with a plan, and which they have. And we have the 5th member, which is Cliff Rao. He's from Pittsburgh. He's an older gentleman. He's about my age, but he comes from a chapter that's very active with our CLC group, and have done a great job, and so he's been a real benefit being with them. But they have come up with a plan. I tasked them with, how do you get from CLC into mainstream AGC into AGC leadership? And I want them to come up with a plan, and they put together a matrix of different things that they believe will work, and that we're going to use and we're going to implement going forward. The 1/6 thing that we've kind of added to the end is our centennial. 2018 will be our 100-year anniversary. We're going to kick it off in New Orleans, and we're kind of looking forward to that year. It's going to be kind of a fun time, so we're hoping that we get you there in New Orleans, and then we're going to have quite a celebration that fall at our National Chapter Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. Also have a big get-together there. We are asking you as chapters, to give us some history of the past 100 years. And I know the Griffith Company's got a whole pile, I think, of stuff of old pictures and things, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for maybe old photos, old things that maybe have happened. And so we're looking for that as national that we can use for our celebration. But we want to emphasize that's not what the celebration is going to be about. It's not going to be about the past 100 years. We're going to celebrate that, and we're going to look at that. But we want to look, what's the next 100 years going to look? We want to look forward. We want what's going to happen over the next 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, and 100 years. Where are we going to be at? So we're really going to focus on the future. We're going to celebrate a little bit of the past, but we're going to focus on the future. We're going to look forward to that. So that's going to be a fun time, and I'm hoping that we all get to see you, maybe see you come to Washington, D.C. and celebrate there, and then at the kickoff in New Orleans. I'm sure it'll be a fun time. So with that, I'm going to better get the heck off the stage and let the others get up here so we can stay a little bit on time. But I just ask you to consider getting involved on a national level. I know Jamie kind of made a joke here, and Randy was kind of talking about it a little earlier about how you get to be AGC president and it never goes away. And I tell people who are getting involved, I said, AGC is a little bit like Hotel California. You may enter, but you will never leave. So it's kind of one of those, but it's been a great time. It's a great experience of being around really good people and learning and doing good things and developing personal relationships with a lot of really good people. So with that, I hope to see you all in Las Vegas. That's our annual convention this year, be in conjunction with ConExpo. So that's always a good convention. We get a lot of people. A lot of people like to go see the big machinery, obviously, and Vegas ain't bad either. So I hope to see you all there. And one last thing is get out and vote. What do you say? What do you say, But, it's still our responsibility to get out there and to vote. And we really hope that you push your get out to vote within your companies and get the people out there and get their vote out there.